Hey, it's Liberty, and today I'm going to be doing the mid-year freakout tag because it is June, I'm not meeting my Storygraph goal, and therefore I am freaking out. I've put the questions in the tag in the description. If you enjoy this, do give a little thumbs up, and I make videos all about books, history, personality, etc. So do check those out and subscribe if you want to. I'm going to get straight into it with the first question, which is the best book that you have read so far this year. And to absolutely no one's surprise, if you've watched a few of my videos, it is The Ship of Magic by Robin Hobb, which is the first book in the Live Ship Traders trilogy that is just set in her fantasy world that she's created, where most of her books, all of her trilogies are set in this world. This is the only book so far this year that I've given 5 stars to, and it is so, I can only say nice things about it. Live ships belong to specific families. They're made out of this special wood, and a certain number of generations have to die on board, and then the ship comes to life, and the figurehead can speak and all of that kind of thing. Althea is the main character of this novel, though it is multi-POV. We get other characters too, and she's always assumed that when her father passes, she will be the captain of her family's live ship. They've travelled together on board since she was young, and that was always going to be her life path. However, that does not happen, and she has to figure out what her life is going to be without this ship. We also follow a pirate captain, Kenneth, who's vying to be a pirate king, and a trainee priest called Wintro, whose life just gets absolutely turned upside down by the events of this novel. It's kind of long, but it is, oh my god, it's so immersive and you just get drawn in. Robin Hobb is the queen of fantasy world building. Everything is so meticulously done and masterfully done too. It's amazing and I love it so much. The second question is the best sequel you've read so far this year, and I've actually only read one sequel, and I read the first 3 books in the Selection series, which is a YA dystopian novel set after the events of World War III, and America is no longer called America, and it's now a monarchy. Basically, it's a caste-based system based on occupation, and our main character, America, her surname is Singer, she's America Singer. She's in the performer cast number 5. And essentially, every time a prince or princess wants to get married, they hold this selection, and all these girls apply, 35 get chosen, they go to live in the castle and essentially have to compete to be the future queen. Now, America applies not really wanting to do it, but she, was like, oh, they pay you when you go. So, if I get it, it means money for my family, and then I can, marry the person that I want to marry. However, when she meets the prince, they form this bond, this friendship, and it really makes her question what she thought she wanted for herself. The sequels were the best bits of this trilogy. You really get into the rebellions, because of course there's a rebellion when you have a dystopian system, and I enjoyed the politics of all of that a lot. I wasn't so invested in the romance aspect of it, which is why I think the first book the sequels were better for me, because it was more about, you get more into the friendships at that point as well between all the different girls, because America kind of only has one friend in the first book amongst this the 35 of them, and you really get to see those bonds form too, which is really nice. The third question is new releases from this year that you haven't read but want to. Definitely, so many, but if I had to pick one, it would be a novel obsession. And this is basically, the main character is Naomi, and she's a bookseller in New York, and of course she wants to be an author one day. She meets this guy Caleb on Tinder, and they're really getting along, and he seems to be perfect, really. And then she discovers that his really impressive ex-girlfriend does not live abroad, but actually lives in New York and is working in the publishing industry. She actually ends up developing this friendship with Caleb's ex-girlfriend, and the whole thing turns out to be great writing fodder for her. I'm expecting humour, great characters, and just a huge climax where everything gets found out and she has to sort of pick up the pieces. It's out, I just have to pick it up. Question 4 is the most anticipated release for the rest of 2022. And for me, I've got A Magic Steeped in Poison, because I've just heard so much about this book from BookTube specifically. The premise just sounds so good. This is a fantasy duology, and the magic system is all around tea. And essentially you can, obviously brew poisons, but you can brew all sorts of magic things, magic spells with it too. Ning is the main character of this novel, and she's someone who brews these teas steeped with magic. She hears about a competition that is taking place sort of at the capital, at the imperial city, to find a sort of master tea maker, and she signs up hoping to find a cure for her sister who has fallen really almost deadly ill. The winner receives a favor from the princess, and so she's hoping that she can do that for her sister. I love competitions, especially when they involve magic, and so this is just right up my street. I'm very excited to read this when it comes out. There's court politics to navigate as well, a mysterious boy, and lots of secrets, which is just, right up my street. Question 5 is the biggest disappointment of this year, and for me, it's got to be Slow Horses. This is the first book in a sort of spy series set in the UK, and Slough House in London is sort of where intelligence agents get dumped who have sort of messed up. Basically, they get pushed out of the way there, and they're all considered liabilities to the service. It is headed by Jackson Lamb, and essentially River Cartwright is the sort of person that you follow, and he messed up his sort of evaluation in front of the world at King's Cross Station, and so he sort of gets dumped there, much to his chagrin, and he's spending his days kind of transcribing phone conversations and digging through trash, and that is not what he wanted for his life. However, something happens, a man is abducted, and the people who have taken him are sort of threatening to behead him live on a stream. River is insistent that he can help, and sort of all the Slow Horses sort of get involved as well, which is very much not in the plan of the UK Intelligence Service. My dad loved this book and loved this series. He's read all of them, and I think because when someone hypes something up for me so much, I tend to go in there with really high expectations, and I don't know what I was expecting, maybe something like The Carré, but what I did really enjoy it. I think I'm going to carry on with the series, but I just, something about this book disappointed me, and very sad. And my dad doesn't watch these videos anyway, so he'll never find this out. I kind of, it's way more modern in terms of the writing style as well as the actual content, because it's set in the present day, and I think that's what threw me off. It does play with your expectations a lot though, which is something that I did really enjoy about it. Very much your own internal biases and prejudices forces you to examine them in a quite effective way. The 6th question is the biggest surprise of this year, and for me it is The School for Good and Evil. I was not expecting much because I knew it was a sort of, I guess, middle grade / early YA series. And I know it's going to be a film soon, and that's why I read it. Also, the premise, this is set in a fairy tale world, and the 2 main characters live in this village where every year the most evil and the most good child get abducted, and they go to be sort of trained in the School for Good and Evil, and they will one day graduate and be in a fairy story and, live and potentially win or lose their story and be infamous, essentially. Agatha wears black, has dark hair, she's got a pet cat, she's very isolated, and Sophie is, pretty, blonde, wears lovely dresses, and, you can guess what happens. She obviously ends up in the evil school, and Agatha ends up in the good school. The centre of this novel really is the friendship between these girls, because they start off the novel as best friends, and they sort of have to navigate this despite being in sort of opposite places and being told to fit into this binary which both of them struggle with. Honestly, I enjoyed this way more than I thought I would. Again, it was that both of the girls really living in the grey area and sort of feeling like they have to change the world around them, because trying to fit people into these binaries is just not helpful in any way. Yeah, given that it's middle grade, it surprised me a lot for the better. The 7th question is your favourite new author, and for me it is Jenica Cohen. I think if you've read one book and you like it, you really have to read 2 for you to be able to say that you've got a favourite new author. Last year I read Dangerous Alliance, and then this year I read My Fine Fellow, and that sort of cemented it for me. My Fine Fellow was the gender-bent retelling of My Fair Lady. It was after reading that I realised, I'm probably going to read everything that she puts out. So both of her novels are sort of YA historical fiction, which is just, I love historical fiction. I'll read most any historical fiction books that I like the sound of. They've both sort of got one distinct female protagonist, although they feature sort of multiple characters, obviously. A little bit of romance / a little bit more of romance, but the main conflict is always with the main character and something that they have to go through. I think as a read, I preferred Dangerous Alliance, but My Fine Fellow was definitely sort of more, original, and the plot things, I found myself not knowing how things would turn out, which, I massively enjoyed both. Number 8 is Newest Fictional Crush. I'm going to go with Wes from Better Than the Movies, which is a YA romance novel that I read. He is literally the boy next door. He's very kind and empathetic, which is very, unexpected to our protagonist and therefore to us as readers, who have sort of have this one picture in their minds of what he was going to be like because of the way that our protagonist knew him growing up. And he's jockey, he plays sports, and he's constantly picking on our main character, so he's constantly surprising us as readers. And it's no surprise that he ended up as a lot of people's fictional crush. Number 9 is Newest favourite character, and for me it's Althea from The Ship of Magic. She is, determined, hardworking, stubborn as hell. She goes through quite a bit in this first novel, and I'm really excited to see, where she goes. I'm so invested in her character and what happens to her and how she ends up. There's something about a combination of strength of character and also vulnerability in her POV chapters that is just really captivating. Number 10, a book that made you cry this year, and honestly no book made me actually cry, but Ship of Magic came very close at the very end. And yeah, I don't want to give too much away, but Number 11 is a book that made you happy this year. For me, that's probably Better Than the Movies, because I think I needed a dose of happiness and romance, and just I needed to enjoy what I was reading. I was coming off a pretty intense reading slump, and it's, YA romance. Liz is the main character, and she's obsessed with rom-coms and stories, and specifically the music in rom-coms. And, she's a romantic, and she decides that she wants to get her sort of childhood crush to sort of fall in love with her. And so she enlists the help of her next door neighbour, Wes, to sort of make that happen. You can kind of guess what's going to happen, but I really enjoy the journey. Yeah, it surprised me in ways, and yeah, I just really enjoyed myself. It was a really great read. It was what I needed at the time. Number 12 is the most beautiful book that you bought or received so far this year, and it definitely has to be Gallant. The copy that I've got is just got really beautiful illustration on the cover, and throughout there are really nice illustrations too. It's a big part of the plot and the part of the story that illustrations do play. So I think that was all done really well, really nicely. I love it. Number 13, the last prompt, what do you need to read by the end of the year? I need to read the next book after Ship of Magic in the Life Ship Traders trilogy by Robin Hobb. I read her first trilogy over 3 years. I do not want to do that this time. Also, Spinning Silver by Naomi Novak, because I have heard it's amazing, and I want to make a video on my favourite retellings. I would kick myself if I made the video and then really loved them. Thank you for watching. That was my mid-year freakout tag for 2022. After making this, I'm slightly freaking out. Overall, it's been an average year reading-wise. Anyway, there's 6 months left to get some good reads and have a good time with my books. So yeah, don't need to stress too much. If you enjoyed yourself, do give it a thumbs up, and I make videos all about books, history, personality, etc. So do check those out and subscribe if you want to. Happy reading!